Byrd,
Yes.
Councilwoman Coonrod, Vice Chairman Smith,
Yes.
Chairman Henderson,
Yes,
9 yeses.
the ayes have it. Moving now to ordinances on final reading. Madam Clerk, since these have passed first reading, if there are no objections from the council, would you take 5A, B, and C together as a package, please?
Item A, an ordinance to amend Chattanooga City Code Part 2, Chapter 38 zoning ordinance so as to rezone part of a property located at 5390 Hickson Pike from R1 residential zone to C2 convenience commercial zone subject to certain conditions. Item B, an ordinance to amend Chattanooga City Code Part 2, Chapter 38 zoning ordinance so as to rezone properties located at 2003, 2005, 2007, and 2009 Bailey Avenue from R3MD moderate density zone to UGC urban general commercial zone subject to certain conditions. Item C, an ordinance closing and abandoning 2 sewer easements located in the 2500 block of Gun Barrel Road, tax map number 149AB017.01 as detailed on the attached maps subject to certain conditions.
Councilman Ledford, followed by Vice Chair Smith.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I do see a District 4 item in that group, so I'll move to approve.
Second.
All right, we have a motion on the floor to approve items 5A, B, and C with a proper second. Are there any questions or comments before we vote? Roll call, please.
Councilwoman Coonrod, Councilman Byrd,
Yes.
Councilwoman Dotley,
Yes.
Councilwoman Burrs,
Yes.
Councilman Hester,
Yes.
Councilman Ledford, Councilwoman Hill, Vice Chairman Smith,
Yes.
Chairman Henderson,
Yes,
9 yeses.
so moved. Moving now to ordinances on first reading. Madam Clerk, let's have 6A, please.
An ordinance to amend Chattanooga City Code Part 2, Chapter 38 zoning ordinance so as to rezone property located at 4541 Peck and Paul Drive from R1 residential zone to R1 residential zone and RTZ residential townhouse zero lot line zone with conditions.
Case number 2021-0184. Is the applicant present? Thank you. Is there any opposition to this case present? All right, very well. Karen, you want to come up, I guess, and just give us a brief overview, then we'll give the applicant 7 minutes and then the opposition their 9.
Okay, I have just presentation slides too, also, if you'd like to see those. This is a rezoning from R1 to R1 with conditions and the RTZ residential townhouse zero lot line zone with conditions. We've gone through this briefly before. I'll just touch on some of the highlights. The overall density of this site is 3.25 units an acre, with a portion to the north remaining R1 with that condition. The applicant did propose some conditions as part of the application request. It is primarily single-family detached in the surrounding area. The plan does support a low-density residential use for this site, and the overall proposed site has a density of 3.23, which is compatible with the plan, although the portion of that site to the south of the subdivision is slightly higher than the plan's recommended density. Staff found the request was compatible with the plan and adjacent land uses, but did note that it introduces smaller lots into the area could set a precedent for future zoning requests, and recommended conditions to help mitigate the impact of integrating those smaller lots into the existing residential area. There are some conditions shown there. There was opposition at the first meeting of Planning Commission. I believe the applicant met with them between the neighbors between the first and second meeting. There was no opposition present at the second meeting when Planning Commission made their recommendation. The recommendation was very similar, their determinations were similar to staff, and made a recommendation to approve the R1 zone for one single-family detached residential dwelling only, and approve RTZ for the kind of that subdivision portion of the zone to the south for single-family detached residences only, 4.9 dwelling units an acre, and a 10-foot landscape buffer is shown there. And then the site plan, so the R1 is that area to the north, and then the subdivision area, which has those 3 conditions, is shown there to the south in that proposed Road A area.
All right. Any questions for staff at this time? Okay, very well. If the applicant would come forward, Mr. IT, if you'd give us 7 minutes on the clock, you'll have 7 minutes with a 2-minute rebuttal.
Thank you, Mike Price, MAP Engineers. If you could go back to the site plan. Thank you. I want to change the dialogue a little bit as it relates to the last public meeting, well, not public meeting, I guess it was a neighborhood meeting that we had, as it relates to flooding that occurs on this property. And so Councilman Hester was in that meeting. And so basically where I think, regardless of what the outcome of this vote is from the council, Councilman Hester, we're going to need your help in getting a meeting with Public Works. And I've gone out to this site and looked at it after and received the pictures as it related to some of the flooding conditions from some of the houses off of Trimble, which is just basically north and off this sheet here on this plan. And what I find is that you've got a large sinkhole that is on the property. But what happens is during flooding events, whether we build the number of homes that you see here, or we build 14 homes, the same conditions are going to apply. So what we are going to look towards trying to determine is a appropriate plan to deal with storm drainage. I can put a detention pond on this site. I can drain this site properly. It still goes to the sinkhole, but it will not alleviate the problems of the neighbors. And I think the pictures certainly that you saw and I've seen indicate that there's an issue here. So if you can get a meeting set with Public Works, we've committed to try to do what we can to spend essentially the same, if it's the same amount of dollars, then we'll do what we can to try to help ameliorate and help this situation as some of these residents above us to the north are flooding. As it relates to the concerns of the residents, I appreciate everybody's being online in the neighborhood meeting that we had. I think we had some good discussions. I don't know that we necessarily came to any conclusions, but I'll just leave that then for their time to speak whatever they would like in terms of their comments as it relates to their concerns for the project. Thank you.
Any questions for the applicant at this time? Okay. Okay. Councilwoman Hill?
Are you saying that you're going to build a neighborhood with a known sinkhole?
There is a known sinkhole, and so this particular sinkhole that is located where you see the wetlands, which is sort of the dashed area, it's located just partly off of our site. So when this particular area was developed, it drains into a sinkhole. And when I was out there yesterday looking at the flows, it was probably intercepting close to about 500 gallons a minute, just sucking it dry. So it has been doing this way for, I don't know, hundreds, thousands of years maybe. But it certainly can handle when we have the rain events that are probably a couple inches. But when we have some pretty significant storm events, the residents to the north of us do flood in their backyards and then backing up to their homes. So unless there is some sort of pumping system, which has been done in other areas of the city, this is going to continue to flood, irrespective of what happens from a development standpoint on our property.
So with regard to development on your property, are the homes you're going to build, are they at risk of flooding?
No.
So they are on just higher ground in general?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. I wonder for the city, what kind of liability does this add for us at the city to build these houses here?
I can answer
Like,
that
yes,
one.
I mean, I think about future infrastructure issues that,
The one that's going to have the liability is myself and the developer.
well, I don't mean liability in terms of being sued. I mean more, right now we have homes, we have empty lots and water drains into a sinkhole. And now we build houses and we still have a sinkhole. And what problems could potentially come from that then become our problem that didn't exist before?
What I would say is the problem exists currently. It's just never had attention to deal with it up to
Okay.
this point. And I would think that given the number of homes again, maybe it's not the number that you see here, but it would be a more residents that will be backing up and impacted as it relates to the area that floods, not the homes, but the area. So that could be something that could be worked together with the city and putting a pump. It doesn't have to pump every day. It doesn't have to pump once a year maybe. But every so often you have flooding events that occurs that will flood those homes to the north, and that needs to be addressed in my opinion.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Councilman Ledford?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I have a quick question because Councilwoman Hill really jogged something in my mind. So this is a known issue for the neighbors. And with your plan, you're going to engineer a solution to the surrounding area flooding? Because I know that by law, you have to capture your water. But will that, okay, that's the first part of that question. The second part is if you just build, I'm assuming the applicant wants to build regardless.
Yes.
Does that shift the responsibility for the infrastructure improvements over to the city?
No.
Because you've called for a meeting,
I've-
and I'm trying to figure out who's paying for the improvements under what scenario.
So these are great questions. Maybe they're not zoning questions, but
They're not, but
to the point, to the question, what I would see is if a development's going to occur, we have responsibilities as it relates to stormwater. If we're spending a number of, say, $40,000 to put in a detention pond, but the better solution is to maybe spend $40,000 towards a pump that can help pull out high water elevations that occur, then everyone benefits at the end of the day because the sinkhole can absorb smaller runoff rates.
okay.
So I think that it's a negotiation between the developer and the city to try to see if there's a partnership that can work in both individuals or both parties' favor, if you will, that will benefit the residents. That would be the hope.
Okay. And the conversation in the meetings, because I don't know about this one, the community meetings, was it because of the density of RTZ or what was the main pushback, I think, from our opposition points?
I think the main pushback had concern with 2 points. One was traffic. There was a concern that there would be roughly 30 more cars traveling the streets, and they felt that that was maybe a onerous situation in their minds. And the second dealt with how we would landscape adjacent to the residents that abut the property, whether that would be some sort of fence or landscaping. You sort of got some people wanted more fencing, maybe some people wanted a little bit more landscaping. It was sort of hard to do both. So it never really settled on exactly what was wanted. But I think that the goal that I heard from the residents is we really just don't want this at the end of the day.
Don't want development or the RTZ?
I just don't think that they, if their preference would be, they would have no development. But as I stated in the meeting, is that the difference is we can have 14 houses which can be constructed and basically the neighborhood has no input or as it relates to landscaping or screenings, or we can do the proposed 19 and we can do some of these items that you want to do. But at the end of the day, I don't think that it quite rose to the level. Again, I'll let them speak for themselves
Sure,
that,
sure.
that we met the bar in their minds as far as that was something that they were willing to do.
Okay. I'm just trying to put my hands on what was, the most contentious point. So the difference is 4 or 5 houses?
Five, basically 4 to 5.
Okay. All right. Thank you, Chairman.
See no more lights. Okay, at this time, we'll allow opposition a total of 9 minutes. Is there anyone that is here in opposition that would like to speak at this time? Okay. All right, if you would come up to the podium. And like I say, you will have a total amount of time of 9 minutes. So just be mindful of anyone that would like to speak after you. So Mr. IT, if you'd give us a total of 9 minutes, please, sir.
I do have pictures that I wanted to show. I didn't-
Okay, if you would give us your name first and then go ahead and I guess you can, give those to Karen.
Stacy Hamilton Mobley. And real quick, I live at the 4536.
Would you
Trisha-
put your mic
I'm
down? So
sorry.
there you go.
A little nervous. I live on 4536 Trisha Drive, which is actually the house on the other side of the sinkhole. So the pictures that I sent around, which I've talked to Councilman Hester, I've been dealing with this since 2019. The pictures I'm sending, my house is at its worst. So my main concern is, and Mr. Price was extremely nice about it, but my main concern is that my house already collects all the water from the whole street and everywhere else. And more houses, he's gonna have the drainage. Well, the drainage, of course, his plan is to run into the sinkhole. So then you have all the water from Trisha Drive where I live, all the water from his development going into this one sinkhole that's not sinking. So I had to move out my house for 2 months, 2 years ago, because the water came all the way up to my house and we had to evacuate. So my concern is that I know it's business, but it's personal for me because this is my home. This is where I am every day. And I just don't want something that hasn't already been corrected, something else built on top of the issue. So my issue is just the drainage, and I can't afford to move or anything. So for me, it's very personal. My house floods. So more water going into this sinkhole he says is pumping. It does pump, but it's not enough to get all the water from my street and now a whole development that's going to be running right to it.
All right.
Good evening. My name is Rhonda McWhirter. I'm at 4532 Tombin Lane. I have a special interest because I would be there on the corner of Tombin and Haskell in the diagram. I'm speaking for a number of the residents that did not make it here tonight. We did have a community meeting with Mr. Price. And the general consensus after everything was done, we do understand business. We do understand they bought the property to develop it. But in the best interest of the neighborhood, the smaller lot sizes, they are concerned with property value, considering everybody else's lots are a little bit bigger than what he's proposing with the 19. We're fine with the smaller amount instead of going to the 19, the 14, 15, 16 houses. We are okay with that. I mean, you can't stop someone from developing their own property, and we do understand that. We just ask that the least amount possible without affecting the other neighbors in the area. And then there's also a question of in the mouth of the inlet, because it's going to be Haskell Drive, there are 2 caves in that area. And those caves lead all the way back up to Hickory Valley Road, the old TNT plant. They are huge. The mouth of the cave is about, I guess, maybe a little shorter than the top of my house. You can stand up. When people used to escape from Silverdale, they would use those caves. Those caves are still there. I just think that might be something that, the developer wants to look at before he does get in there and see that. It's just kind of a forewarning. But all of the kids, I've been in this area for 47 years. So I've seen the cave. I was too scared to go in the cave, but I know the caves are there. Other than that, that's all I have to say. It's just the concern of the density, the traffic, and the lot sizes.
My name is Michael Harrison. I'm on Peckinpah, 4514 on the other end, but I own property on High School too, a few houses down from her. And my biggest concern was the water. I had problem with water in my house, and I know what she's talking about. So it's a pump station back there now, but it doesn't pump unless you clean out from around it. You know what I mean? So it's nobody doing that on a regular cycle. The city's, I don't know who put it in, but it's been there since I've been there. I've been there 25 years. And that pump, I thought it was an electrical station down there, it's fenced in, but it's a pump. They told me it's a pump station, but nobody's maintaining it. So if they're gonna build, that's fine, and he's gonna build a retaining pond, but where's that water going? In the sinkhole? But it's gonna be a lot more water than what we see. The way things are going with the federal government and they're not putting money in infrastructure, we're going to get more water. Look at the weather. The weather changes now. It's supposed to be cold. It just got cold. It should have been cold a while back. But things are gonna happen, and we need to look at this issue of the water before they build. That's all I got to say.
Do we have any questions for the opposition at this time? Okay, thank you. Mr. Price, you have 2-minute rebuttal. We just count, huh?
I have a well,
Opposition? Oh, or for Mr. Price?
yeah.
Okay. You have 2 minutes of rebuttal left, and then I think some questions.
I'll just take questions.
Okay.
Um,
Councilwoman Burks.
yeah. Mike, so I'm hearing a lot of different things here. Does your development impact the flooding?
We will be able to mitigate our impacts as it relates to stormwater runoff so that it will not
Because
create,
you're required to, right?
which we would be
You're
required.
required
yes,
to
ma'am.
by the city. Okay, that's one thing. Are you familiar with the pump they're talking about?
It is a sewer pump station. It is not a stormwater pumping station.
Okay, that helps. So maybe city needs to look at it and clean it out, but it's not relative to your situation.
It appeared to be functioning fine when I was out there.
So it is functioning
Yes, ma'am.
fine. All right. And it's your understanding that everything would be approved. I guess this may be an opposition, Mr. Chair, but everything is approved if it's 5 fewer houses?
Right, we can't stop R1 zone. It's already R1 zone. They can build 14 to 15 houses.
But it's the extra houses.
It's the extra houses, and it started out being a townhouse.
Hmm.
RTZ, you could build townhouses. We strictly didn't want that at all.
Okay.
And then we said, now we are saying, everybody we talked to said no to any change of R1 zone. So they're gonna build 14, 15 houses.
Thank you. I was just trying to get clear in my head
Okay.
what the
All
problem.
right. Well, it'd be better if they come to the podium to speak. Councilman Ledford.
Thank you, Chairman. Mr. Price, what role does TDEC have in this?
So because there's more than 1 acre of disturbance, they will review the erosion control plan. The stormwater runoff discharge goes to a sinkhole, but because we are not impacting the sinkhole proper, TDEC will not have any input as it relates to the permitting process on this.
Does the infrastructure for mitigation change with an R1 or an RTZ, or does the added 4 houses allow for increased
The amount-
mitigation efforts? Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. The amount of runoff generated for 14 houses versus 19 houses is the same. So there's really no difference. The amount of, if you look at the road configuration that has currently proposed, would be no different for 14 houses versus 15. It's going to be exactly the same. The only difference is the lot lines will spread out. You'll have a fewer houses, but the amount of fill, the amount of grading, storm, everything remains exactly the same.
Okay. And then the traffic concern versus R1 and RTZ, my quick math says that's really only 5 cars or 10 cars max if you had a 2-car family.
Correct. 10
Okay.
cars if you had 2-car families.
Thank you.
Councilman Byrd.
Thank you, Chair. Hey, Mike, with the, as it is now, R1, say you can build, we just saying a number, you can build 12 houses,
14 to 15 is.
14, 15, as it is now.
Yes, sir.
So you can go out there and build now. The community really doesn't have a say, so it's just is what it is, correct?
Correct.
Now, by you adding the extra houses, that's when you have to put the retention pond.
That would be the same either way. I told them in our last meeting that regardless of this outcome, we need to work together as a community, as neighbors, to see if we can get some sort of partnership worked out with the city, as there is currently an issue that is there that I think needs attention. So irrespective of how the outcome of this vote goes, I've committed that we're going to work together to try to come up with hopefully a solution that addresses some of these residents' concerns. As it relates to the other items, though, that could be done would be landscaping that would go around the perimeter, adjoining the residents, so that those that are directly to the property, back up to the property, would either see some sort of fencing or landscaping is what we had proposed.
Okay.
Without that, that's not a requirement. It's not to say it won't be some landscaping done, but it may not be to the degree that would be otherwise.
Gotcha. Do we know if there's any have there been any 311 complaints or public works? Have they been out there to see if there's a crushed pipe or something? Because I deal with some flooding too because of
Yeah,
drainage.
in this instance, it's the sinkhole. So think of it as a bathtub,
Mhm.
and that if you pull the stopper, there's a set amount of water that can drain out through that tub.
Mhm.
If I take 5-gallon buckets though and start dumping water into there, I overcapacitate what can go through that drain. And that's
Mhm.
what happens to these residents in this area is when you have those significant rain events, the sinkhole just can't absorb and take in that amount of water that's coming to it because of the higher rain events. If you have smaller rain events, it does fine.
Who owns the land where the sinkhole is?
Those are all owned by private property owners at this point. So it's basically sort of broken up. About 2 to 3 property owners probably own the sinkhole proper.
The sinkhole. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Councilman Ledford?
Chairman, just have one follow-up question. This is on the setback because in R1, are we at type A or B?
So with an R1, there is no landscape buffer
Well, there's
requirement.
no landscape buffer,
Correct. With RTZ, we were proposing a 10-foot, which is a type C.
type C.
Correct.
So you-
Setback, building
okay.
setbacks are the same irrespective.
So
It's
you're not
20
required fencing, you're not required,
In an R1, you're not required any fencing
Anything.
or any landscaping. That is correct.
okay, because I thought I heard earlier
We-
fencing was a big conversation piece.
We talked about that if we could gain the support of the neighborhood, but
But no fencing if R1.
there would be no plans for any fencing. In driving through the neighborhood, there's really not a whole lot of properties that are fenced between each other anyway,
Yeah.
from what I saw. So I didn't really, I'm not a big fan of fences. I'm more of a fan of planting
Well-
trees and shrubs versus fences.
But you're not required to do that in R1.
Correct.
Okay, thank you, Chairman.
Thank you.
Mr. Price, I do have a couple of questions. One, so I think, and I didn't see a layout of the proposed development, but, and I heard one of the opposition say that the lot sizes would be different. And I have heard that before, and I think after seeing it in a subdivision up against houses where you do have larger lots, it is a different look. And I certainly understand their concern. The other thing is you're only required to hold the first 1 inch of water on the property, correct? Or
Not actually. What you basically are charged to do is take the first inch of runoff and clean it before it is leaving your property. So in other words, you're trying to remove suspended solids,
but I
dirt.
thought you actually had to hold the first 1 inch because
No.
that's the ground that you're putting a hard surface on. Obviously, the hard surface can't absorb it. The ground can.
In this instance, since we have wetlands and looking at the type soils, we will not be able to absorb that first inch.
So you're not even absorbing that first 1
No.
inch.
So what we'll have to do is to take care of water quality and then water quantity as well out of that.
But you are creating about 10,000 more square feet of hard surface as opposed to,
I haven't
course.
run the numbers, but I won't argue with that
yeah,
number.
okay. All right. Any more questions for Mr. Price?
Okay, thank you.
Councilman Hester?
Thank you. I want to thank you, Mike Price, the Lakeshore Hills neighborhood. After careful consideration, my recommendation is to deny it this time.
Is that in the form of a motion, sir?
That is the motion.
Okay.
Correct.
And did I hear a second? Okay, we have a motion on the floor to deny case number 2021-0184 with a proper second. Are there any questions or comments before we vote? Roll call, Madam Clerk.
Councilwoman Hill. Councilman Ledford. Councilman Hester. Councilwoman Burrs. Councilwoman Dottley. Councilman Byrd? Councilwoman Coonrod? Vice Chairman Smith? Chairman Henderson?
Yes,
9 yeses.
motion to deny is approved. Or it carries. All right, moving now down to items 6. Madam Clerk, if you would, let's take 6B and C together, if there's no opposition from the council.
Item B, an ordinance closing and abandoning a portion of a right-of-way located at the corner of West 26th Street at Howard Street as detailed on the attached map subject to certain conditions. Item C, an ordinance closing and abandoning a portion of the 2500 block of East 16th Street and an unopened alley as detailed on the attached map subject to certain conditions.
All right, Councilwoman Coonrod, followed by, well, he took his, Councilwoman Dolly. No, Councilwoman Coonrod, followed by Councilwoman Dolly. Okay, I didn't hear you, I'm sorry. And she seconded it? I spoke to Ellis earlier about getting some sound, some speakers up here so we could hear. This is good. Okay, we have a motion on the floor apparently to approve items 5 or 6B and C with a proper second. Do we have any questions or comments before we vote? Roll call, please.
Councilwoman Coonrod? Councilman Byrd? Councilwoman Dotley? Councilwoman Byrd? Councilman Hester? Councilman Ledford? Councilwoman Hill? Vice Chairman Smith? Chairman Henderson?
Yes.
9 yeses.
Motion to approve items 6B and C does carry. Madam Clerk, moving now to resolutions 7A, please.
A resolution authorizing an amendment to resolution number 30612 to increase the amount of grant funds to be passed through to the American Battlefield Trust by $66,320 for a total grant amount of $1,910,220.
What's the pleasure of the council? All right, we have a motion on the floor to approve with a proper second. Questions or comments before we vote? Roll call, please.
Councilwoman Hill? Councilman Ledford? Councilman Hester? Councilwoman Byrd? Councilwoman Dotley? Councilman Byrd? Councilwoman Coonrod? Vice Chairman Smith? Chairman Henderson?
Yes.
9 yeses.
Motion to approve does carry. Moving now to economic development under Madam Clerk, if there's no objections, both of these short-term vacation rentals have the same address. It's my understanding, it's a duplex. So Councilwoman Hill, do you have any problem with hearing both of these at the same time? Okay, so read B and C together, please.
Item B, a resolution considering short-term vacation rental application number 21 STVR 2224 for property located at 2765 Tanglewood Road, Unit B. Item C, a resolution considering short-term vacation rental application number 21 STVR 225 for property located at 2765 Tanglewood Road, Unit A.
Case 2021-010 and 2021-011. Is the applicant present? Nope. Is there any opposition to these two cases present? Councilwoman Hill, I am not seeing an applicant nor any opposition present.
While they are not here tonight, there has been significant opposition. We had 4 people that triggered this hearing, but then we've received another 24 or 25 signatures direct to me, and ultimately will come through the email system to all of you. I've spoken with the applicant, and they understand that I am moving to deny this application.
All right, we have a motion on the floor to deny these 2 applications with a proper second. Are there any questions or comments before we vote? This will be for both cases. Roll call, please.
Councilwoman Coonrod? Councilman Byrd? Councilwoman Dotley? Councilwoman Byrd? Councilman Hester? Councilman Ledford? Councilwoman Hill? Vice Chairman Smith? Chairman Henderson?
Yes.
9 yeses.
Motion to to deny case B and C does carry. Now, Madam Clerk, if you would, under 7D, E, F, and G as a package, please.
Yes. Item D, a resolution authorizing the mayor or his designee to enter into a lease agreement with OBC Properties Delaware LLC in substantially the form attached for approximately 22,613 square feet of office space located at 5715 Uptown Road, further identified as a portion of tax parcel number 157MA011 for a term of 5 years with the option to renew for 2 additional terms of 2 years each, with year 1 annual rent of $429,647, with future rent payments subject to the annual appropriation of funds. Item E, a resolution authorizing the Chattanooga Fire Department to accept a donation of 5,000 12-ounce bags of Chibo's coffee with a value of $10 per bag for a total donation of approximately $50,000. Item F, a resolution authorizing Chief Information Officer, CIO, to enter into a one-time purchase agreement with DLT Solutions, Inc. for the purchase of auto desk license and support products effective January 19, 2022 through January 18, 2023, servicing the Departments of Public Works, Transportation, Regional Planning, Smart Cities, and the Fire Marshal's Office for an amount not to exceed $55,000. And item G, a resolution authorizing the Office of the City Attorney to enter into an agreement with Arthur J. Gallagher Risk Management Services, Inc. for insurance brokerage services, property equipment and fleet insurance, cyber, fine art insurance, athletic liability, commercial auto, out-of-state auto, public official bonds, Head Start auto, etc., for 4 years for an estimated $1 million per year.
Councilwoman Burrs,
Move approval.
we have a motion on the floor to approve item 7D, E, F, and G with a proper second. Are there any questions or comments before we vote? Roll call, please.
Councilwoman Hill? Councilman Ledford? Councilman Hester?
Yes.
Councilwoman Burrs? Councilwoman Dotley? Councilman Byrd? Councilwoman Coonrod? Vice Chairman Smith?
Yes.
Chairman Henderson?
Yes.
9 yeses.
Motion to approve carries. Now, Madam Clerk, with no objection from the council, would you take 7H through M, please?
Item H, a resolution authorizing the administrator for the Department of Public Works to execute a Chattanooga Gas Company non-residential gas extension contract, BCA NO 233-811 for the Greenway Farm Conference Center located at 4960 Gan Store Road, Hickson, Tennessee, in the amount of $26,564.26. Item I, a resolution authorizing the administrator for the Department of Public Works to approve change order number 1 final for Tri-State Roofing Contractors LLC of Chattanooga, Tennessee, relative to contract number R20017216 roofing repairs for Summit of Softball Ball Fields rebid for an increased amount of $53,545 for a revised contract amount of $136,905. Item J, a resolution authorizing the administrator for the Department of Public Works to approve change order number 1 final for SAK Construction LLC of O'Fallon, Missouri for contract number W17021-201 South Chickamauga Creek 1, Phase 2, a consent decree project for a decreased amount of $111,061 to release the remaining contingency amount of $125,000 for a revised contract amount of $2,388,939. Item K, a resolution authorizing the administrator for the Department of Public Works to execute an agreement with Hamilton County for the 2022 biannual GIS imagery lidar ortho photography update for an amount not to exceed $95,000. Item L, a resolution authorizing the Department of Public Works and Transportation to accept a donation from Publix Tennessee LLC for the Tennessee Riverwalk construction and paving of the West 35th Street as detailed in the attached donation agreement in the amount of $125,000. Item M, a resolution authorizing the Department of Public Works and Transportation to request and Accept Coronavirus Response and Release Supplemental Appropriations Act, CRRSAA funds to reimburse the city at 100% for transportation related to preventative maintenance, routine maintenance, operations, and personnel in the amount of $2,488,558.
What is the pleasure of the council? We have a motion on the floor to approve items 7H through M with a proper second. Any questions or comments before we vote? Roll call, please.
Councilwoman Coonrod, Councilman Byrd, Councilwoman Dotley, Councilwoman Burrs, Councilman Hester, Councilman Ledford, Councilwoman Hill, Vice Chairman Smith, Chairman Henderson,
Yes,
9 yeses.
so moved. That takes us up to tonight's purchases. You want to walk us through those, Chief?
Yes, sir. Mr. Chairman, tonight we have 7 purchases. The first is from the Department of Public Works, new blanket contract for grounds maintenance at landfills. This will be a 4-year contract with an amount not to exceed $85,000 per year. 3 bids were received, and the award goes to Special Touch Lawn Service as the best bid meeting specifications. Item 2 is for the Waste Resources Division of Public Works. This is a new blanket contract for odor control filter media. This will be a 4-year contract with an amount not to exceed $100,000 per year. 1 bid was received. The invitation to bid was re-advertised and produced no additional bids. The award goes to Carbon Activated Corp. as the only bid meeting specifications. Item 3, also Waste Resources Division of Public Works. This is to purchase of 2 pad-mounted remote supervisory underground distribution switch gears. 2 bids were received, and the award will go to Gresco Supply, Inc. as the best bid meeting specifications. The purchase amount is $322,496. Item 4, Waste Resources Division of Public Works, new blanket contract for manhole inspection services. This will be a 4-year contract with an amount not to exceed $200,000 per year. 6 bids were received, and the award goes to Compliance Envirosystems LLC as the best bid meeting specifications. Item 5 from Community Development. This is a sole source procurement for services specifically listed in the Minority Community Health Grant. This is an external evaluator program evaluator from Tennessee State University, Dr. Charles Brown, who's specifically listed in the grant award. The amount is $89,196 and covers 2 years of program evaluator services. Item 6, Parks Maintenance Division of Parks and Outdoors. New blanket contract for security guard services. This will be a 4-year contract with an amount not to exceed $825,000 per year. 1 bid was received. The invitation to bid was re-advertised and produced no additional bids. The award goes to SEI Inc. as the only bid meeting specifications. And last item is with the Office of Performance Management and Open Data. New blanket contract for Socrata software for data management and data sharing. This will be a 1-year contract with the option to renew it annually for 3 additional years. This procurement utilizes Sourcewell contract 090320-TTI. The contract amount is $141,750 for year 1, and the amount
Councilwoman Coonrod?
Thank you, Chair. Before I vote, I want to say to Brent and administration, thank you for listening to council and rebidding the security guard services out. I really appreciate you taking the time to listen to our concerns on that. Not sure why, I'm not going to ask or anything like that. But I move to approve.
We have a motion on the floor to approve. Do I have a second? All right. We now have a proper second to approve tonight's purchases. Any questions? Any other questions before we vote? Roll call, please.
Councilman Ledford, Councilman Hester, Councilwoman Dotley, Councilman Byrd, Chairman Smith, Chairman Henderson,
Yes,
9 yes.
purchases does carry. Chief, I'll come right back to you in just a minute, sir. We now move to committee reports. Councilwoman Coonrod. Councilman Byrd? There we go.
Okay, yes, we will be having a park. We will be getting an update from Park and Public Safety Committee meeting on January the 18th.
Thank you.
I said that right. Thank you.
Councilwoman Dotley. Vice Chair Smith. Councilwoman Burrs. Councilman Hester. Councilman Ledford.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Planning and zoning met today. It was a great way to kick off the new year. We covered all items on our agenda and can't wait till next month's meeting.
Outstanding.
Thank you.
Councilwoman Hill. Thank you. All right, we do have a couple of items under other business this afternoon, a report on debt obligations. So we're going to ask the chief to come back up and give us a report, a brief report.
Yes, sir. I will go quickly and meet the obligations that we need to meet. We have two bond issuances to report. The first is Series 2021A bonds. These are general obligation bonds with a face amount of $12,455,000. The interest cost for these bonds was 0.9079%. Bond ratings were AAA for both Standard & Poor's and Fitch. These are 100% for 100% for funding capital projects. Bond closing was on December 8th. These are 10-year bonds with maturities annually through 2031, and the cost of issuance was $93,352.
Is that it?
Second one.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. The second bond issuance was 2021 B series bonds. These are general obligation refunding bonds. The face amount was $22,075,000. These are refunding 2011 Series A and B bonds. The interest cost for these bonds was 0.6028%. Bond ratings were AAA for both Standard & Poor's and Fitch. These are 100% refunding bonds for 2011 bonds. Maturities over the next 6 years, and the cost of issuance was $140,591. That is it.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
That takes us through all agenda items for this afternoon, brings us to persons wishing to address the council this afternoon. By show of hands, is there anyone present with us tonight that would like to address the council? We're going to ask the Madam Attorney if she would to read the rules to engage the council, and you can make your way to the podium.
All right. Each speaker wishing to address the council will be recognized at the microphone, which is provided for that purpose. We ask you state your name and where you live. We ask you may address the council upon matters within the legislative and quasi-judicial authority of the council and limit your remarks to 3 minutes. Thank you.
All right, Mr. IT, if you'll give us 3 minutes on the clock, we'll be ready to go. Thank you, sir. Go ahead.
Hello, my name is Joshua Capellish, and I'm an advocate for human rights, specifically regarding the homeless folks here in Chattanooga. I come here quite a bit, not just here to this podium for 3 minutes, but I do spend a lot of time downtown with my friends whom are becoming sheltered in various capacities with respect to not just my resources, but the community's resources from abroad and even across the country. So I guess what I'm trying to talk about here is human rights, in which we find are inalienable among us, and that we are able to speak in a manner that we are able to understand and represent ourselves, but also others and their rights. And so it troubles me to think about these things, but essentially it comes down to moral behavior and also a social process of biology and social evolution, which is a good thing. And so humans are described, we have a social pattern of rule setting, and then there's natural justice and how we relate to nature. Nature is always ever present, even in this room as we sit in a 70-degree climately controlled building paid for by the taxpayers. Animals are different from humans because they're not able to take care of themselves if they're domesticated, and if they're not domesticated, they are able to be in the elements without shelter and or build a nest of some sort. And so like the birds in the city, we don't know how many there are, and it is the same with homeless folks who have a capacity to be mobile. Some, however, are limited with physical disabilities, mental disabilities, and especially financial disabilities with respect to the ability to afford housing. And we're all aware of these issues. And, you know, if I were to quote the mayor in his inaugural speech, a fierce urgency of now is upon us as we have seen snow. We went from 70 degrees to, you know, below freezing. And Thursday, it's going to be 19 degrees and rain. And it really concerns me that these folks don't have a place or the ability to get to adequate shelter. And I'm not blaming anyone for that, I guess, outcome. But, you know, what we're trying to do here is basically provide shelter as fast as we can in ways that meet, you know, specific rules and guidances that are present and have been present and that we focus on. But what we're trying to do is basically get something done now. And, you know, basically I'm expressing grace and gray area leniency in terms of being able to provide adequate shelter, which is different from a tent. Shelter is defined as something that is able to protect you from harm, be it the weather and or other people robbing you of your little possessions and things. And so the past week or so, I've been downtown and I've seen a lot of stuff, but the past 2 days I've seen cold people, you know, cold people. I know my 3 minutes is up. I didn't have the timer, but I want to thank you for your time.
I need to stop you right there. Thank you, sir. All right, come ahead. Just come to the podium and give us your name and district number, please.
My name is Robert Polensik, and I'm here in regards to 6A under planning. And I've been listening. I didn't hear mine called. I am new to this.
I did call for an applicant, and I'm not sure, and I did call it by case number as well.
I've been here since before
but
6,
that
and I
case
apologize for that.
That case was denied.
This
6A.
Robert Polensik, was there any reason for the denial? I went through zoning. Everybody said everything was fine.
Is it? What? Am I? Oh, well, that's a 6A. Madam
Yes.
Clerk, what have you got? What have you got on 6A?
Oh,
That's what I thought.
there was a misunderstanding.
You're
This
on next
gentleman
week?
said that they published this week's or next week's on the back of this week's.
Yes, that's
So
yes. Next week's on the back of this week's.
So I misread this, came from Atlanta, was
You
here.
need to be with us next week. Is that what you're
Oh,
saying?
boy. Thank you.
Okay.
Is there any way I could be seen now? Well, this was my mistake. I apologize, but is there any way that I can be seen for this? It was
Well,
just,
you will have an opportunity next week to present your case. You do have an opportunity for 3 minutes tonight, which seems like we've been up here for about 5 now, but.
yeah, I'll pass because
Okay.
I don't want to take anybody's time.
Okay.
I'll show up next week.
Thank you. Anyone else that would like to address the council this afternoon? Council, I'm not seeing any other hands to address the council. What's your pleasure? So moved. Yeah, yeah.